Well, it just happened. President Trump is now trying to abolish the IRS. We now know that more than 6,000 IRS employees have been fired just as of today. At the same time, we are going through the IRS's busy season, but at the same time, we're now hearing that Doge could potentially issue a refund check of maybe $5,000 or more to 79 million American households. And again, all this is happening as President Trump is just 1 month in to his presidency. So I'm going to break down what's going on, what this could mean for you and I moving forward, but why this is such big news at this time. So again, I'll break all this down in just a moment, but all I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So a crazy thing is happening right now. Look at this. It says Trump wants to abolish the IRS and replace it with tariffs. There is something called the Internal Revenue Service. That's the IRS. Well, President Trump, just a few weeks ago, he announced something called the External Revenue Service, where instead of taxing the American people, we're charging tariffs and taxes and fees and duties to other countries to import their products here into the greatest economy in the entire world. Now, here's where things are getting interesting. President Trump has now fired 6,700 IRS employees. Look at this. It says the IRS lays off 6,700 employees, torpedoing Democratic enforcement boost. Now, under the IRA, this is what they call the Inflation Reduction Act, and this passed a couple years ago. Under this bill, there was supposed to be $80 billion that was going to go to the IRS to hire up to 88,000 new IRS agents. Well, it actually never happened. According to reports, that what we are seeing is that the IRS, who has about 100,000 people working for them, well, this is actually just going to see a decrease of agents and employees. The reason why this is such a big deal is because the Biden administration said that by hiring 88,000 new IRS agents, they were going to go after the wealthy. They were going to recoup money that was lost. They were going to go after what they called tax cheats. Now, that essentially didn't happen. They never hired people. They didn't hire the amount of people that they said they were going to hire. Never did it. Now they hired some, but not even close to 88,000. And that's why some are saying, well, we need to pull this money back. Republicans have already clawed back a decent amount of money, but not enough. Here's where things are getting interesting. And I've shown this multiple times over the past several days. According to reports, President Trump and Doge are potentially going to include a 20% rebate back to the American people based off the savings that Doge is able to acquire. Here's what I mean. Right now, President Trump wants to see about $2 trillion in cuts to federal spending. Okay, this is big. The reason why this is so big is because if we can cut $2 trillion, they are saying that they would actually give back 20% to the American people. That would be about $5,000 per household. Now, how does this tie into President Trump ready to end taxes and actually firing thousands of IRS agents? Well, here's how it works. What we are now hearing is that, or what we're seeing is that the American people are very upset. They're upset at the fact that we've had all this money go out to different agencies and programs and states, and the money just sat there. Even during the pandemic, there was a deadline that the money had to be spent or else it would go back to the federal government. Well, states just wasted a lot of that money. They built roads because they were used too much during the pandemic. They built, bridges, and they, renamed stadiums and different monuments and did all this other stuff, right? And relocated federal buildings and whatever. And they did all this stuff on our taxpayer dollars. Now what Trump is saying is we are going to claw that money back. That was spent illegally. There was so much fraud and abuse and wasteful spending that we're going to end this right now. Well, here's what's going on. I want to read this to you. It says, Donald Trump announced the External Revenue Service, and his goal is very simple: to abolish the Internal Revenue Service and let all the outsiders pay. It says, in other words, America will raise so much money from President Donald Trump's tariff plan that Americans will no longer need to pay income taxes. Okay, let that sink in. We may not have to pay income taxes because we're going to get so much money from tariffs. Look at this. It says it sounds great, but it's riddled with problems. America raises about $3 trillion each year from income taxes. The United States also happens to import around $3 trillion worth of goods annually, meaning tariffs would have to be at least 100% on all imported goods for tariffs to replace income taxes. And it would have to exceed 100% in order for us to actually have additional money. Here's where it all ties in. We are now starting to see that the federal government doesn't need trillions of dollars to run every single year. We've been operating at a deficit. So if we can reduce the amount of money that the federal government spends every single year, then we don't need to actually tax that much. So again, we bring in about $3 trillion each year on taxes. Well, if we are not spending all that money, we don't need to produce that money. We could continue to have a smaller tax rate, tax just the people that make over, let's say, $50,000 per year, and everyone else, you get pretty much that money free and clear. Right? There's so many different ideas being floated around. But again, I bring this to your attention because if we are seeing Doge uncover all this fraud and abuse and wasteful spending, and we can cut more than $2 trillion in federal spending without getting rid of Social Security, SNAP benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, right? All these other welfare programs. If we can do this, we could be very successful. But again, it's going to create, and we have to establish a massive overhaul of our current federal government. This includes the IRS. So with there being 6,700 IRS agents that were just let go today, many people are wondering, well, is this going to mean I don't get my taxes on time? If I file today, I'm just not getting my taxes? No. I want to read this to you. Okay? It says the IRS fired 6,700 employees on Thursday. It says the employees were designated as probationary, meaning they were working for the agency on a trial basis prior to becoming full staff members. It says more than 5,000 of the fired staff members were auditors and collection staff dealing with tax compliance issues. Okay? So, not exactly what we were thinking. Now, I want to give you one last thing. These changes to the IRS, they will impact us. Now, I don't know if we're going to see less audits. I don't know if we're going to see the wealthy get targeted, okay, or the lower income households. I just don't know. But what I can tell you is if we start to see more success from the Department of Government Efficiency and the Trump administration, like we've been seeing over the past several weeks, that's going to create massive changes. The IRS is going to see a massive overhaul, which they're already going through. We could see the end of the IRS very soon, which means we do not pay any federal income taxes. And then we could also see that money come back to us in the form of a rebate check based off of all the additional money that we've actually spent. But get this, according to a report out this morning, if we have this success, okay, and we eliminate the IRS, we abolish the IRS, we eliminate federal income taxes. But if the American people are buying so much inventory and goods and all this stuff from other countries, and the tariffs are through the roof, we spend an excess amount of money on tariffs, right? What could happen is the Trump administration could use, and again, these numbers are just pretty much made up, Okay, but what if we have, let's say, $500 billion in excess funding? Okay, a surplus is $500 billion at the end of the year from what we need versus what we brought in from revenue from tariffs. What could then happen is the American people could get a rebate check, let's say 50%, and the federal government takes the other 50% and they pay down our federal deficit. That would mean $250 billion to the American people, $250 billion to the federal government to pay down our debts. Again, I'm just throwing that out there, those numbers, the 50%. But there's a report this morning that that is potentially what the Trump administration is aiming for. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.